Hey everyone, and welcome to this strategic explainer. Look, if you're grinding away for competitive exams and just feeling completely stuck, you've definitely come to the right place. Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we are going to completely transform how you approach your preparation by decoding an absolutely brilliant masterclass from Professor Bausa Habdamali. We're going to unpack the exact methodology that separates the folks who struggle for years from the ones who finally make the cut. Here is exactly how we're going to map out our journey today. We'll kick things off with mindset and time management, move right into a prelims reality check, talk about thinking like an administrator, and then wrap it all up by breaking down the art of descriptive writing and mastering constitutional answers. Let's get into it. Part 1. Mindset and time management. The absolute foundation of success. Honestly, it is so deeply frustrating to study for 4 or 5 years and just not get that breakthrough. You put in the hours, you skip hanging out with your friends, and yet nothing happens. Well, Professor Damale points out something huge here. If you're stuck, the problem probably isn't your effort, it's your methodology. Professor Damale's core philosophy is simple, but man, is it brutal. Just burying yourself in books with no real direction, it just doesn't work. To actually survive this preparation, you absolutely have to pair it with strict time management, crystal clear goals, and this relentless consistency that doesn't stop until you actually cross that finish line. It's not just about studying hard, right? It's about studying smart and staying relentlessly on track. Moving on to part 2, the prelims reality check, or what I like to call the illusion of easy papers. Let's talk about the MPSC prelims. You're looking at a 400-mark hurdle here. That's a 200-mark general studies paper. And since 2016, a 200-mark CSAT paper that tests your logical, descriptive, and factual reasoning. Sounds straightforward enough, right? Well, let's take a look at the actual data. Check out this number, 4,083. So based on the MPSC results that came out on June 2nd, 2026, out of a literally jaw-dropping 10 lakh applicants, yeah, that is 1 million people, only 4,083 students actually made the cut to move forward. That is a staggering bottleneck. But here's where it gets really crazy, and this is the crucial point right here. 98. The cutoff to actually get into that tiny top group of 4,083 students was a shockingly low 98 marks out of 400. Just let that sink in for a second. Less than 25% was enough to clear the exam. This massive rejection rate combined with such an incredibly low cutoff proves there's a huge disconnect between what aspirants think the exam is and what it actually is. Which brings us to part 3, thinking like an administrator, the real paradigm shift. So here is the million-dollar question. If the syllabus is literally just your standard 8th to 12th grade textbooks, basic history, geography, general science, current affairs, why on earth is scoring just 98 out of 400 so monumentally difficult? While it really comes down to the easy paper trap, you know the exact feeling. You walk out of the exam hall feeling totally invincible. You're texting your friends, "Oh, the paper was a breeze." But then the official answer key arrives and boom, total heartbreak. Your score plummets below 100 and you're just sitting there wondering, I read all of this. How did I get it so wrong? And this right here perfectly illustrates exactly why that happens. These exam papers, they aren't written by your average high school teachers. They are carefully crafted by veteran administrators with 15 to 20 years of real-world experience. And these experts are actively trying to filter out the rote learners, what's referred to as bokumpeti, or blind memorization. Instead, they're designing tricky, layered questions to test real decision-making skills. When they look at your answers, they're basically asking, does this candidate have the critical thinking skills required to actually run an entire district? Okay, part 4, the art of descriptive writing, finding precision and means. Because once you actually survive that prelims filter, the means exam is where you really have to prove your administrative capability on paper. It's no longer just multiple choice. Now they want deep, simple, and exceptionally precise descriptive answers. You have got to synthesize complex information within really strict boundaries. Let's look at a super practical example from history. Imagine you're sitting in the exam and you get this prompt. Explain the Ashtapradhan Mandal, the Council of 8 Ministers, of Shivaji Maharaj. Sounds okay, but there's a massive catch firmly written in brackets. Write it in exactly 150 words. Just think about the immense challenge there. There are heavy, massive volumes written about Shivaji Maharaj's history. How in the world do you condense that epic historical narrative into a strictly enforced 150-word limit without losing the essence? Well, here is Professor Damale's brilliantly actionable framework for exactly this kind of question. The trick? Do not write a rambling story. Instead, you're going to weave distinct angles tightly together. Step 1. Dedicate just 2 to 3 precise lines to the essential qualities and merits of those ministers. Step 2. Instantly connect that to strategic outcomes, like the successful implementation of guerrilla warfare. And step 3. Highlight the broader social impact, like unifying people across all castes and religions. Boom. Doing it this way shows the examiner that you can distill vast amounts of data into a highly structured, complete report, which is exactly what an administrator does every single day. And finally, Part 5, Mastering Constitutional Answers by Layering Facts and Evaluation. So when we shift gears from history over to political science and the Constitution for UPSC mains, you actually need a completely different analytical structure. It's way less about telling a historical narrative and far more about really sharp, comparative legal analysis. Let's examine this classic 250-word UPSC question, evaluate the powers of the Indian president versus the American president. Notice that one single directive word, evaluate. When a word like that pops up, it completely alters how you have to present your knowledge. If you just list out a bunch of facts you memorized, you're going to fail the question, straight up. So, how do we actually construct this advanced answer? First, we decode evaluate, which means you need to assess the nature and the limitations of those powers, not just list them. Sure, you start by listing the specific powers, which any basic student can do. But then, to truly show your administrative caliber, you have to layer those facts with sharp evaluation. You need to emphasize the limited, nominal scope of the Indian president compared to their American counterpart. And the ultimate masterstroke? You anchor your entire argument by citing the 42nd Constitutional Amendment. That proves you deeply understand how those presidential powers are legally bound in India. It literally transforms a basic answer into a highly analytical, top-tier response. All right, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to literally take a hard look at your desk right now. Look at your notes. Look at your highlighters. The overarching message from Professor Damala today is crystal clear. You have got to instantly abandon the brute force memorization. Reading endless books until you are completely exhausted, that's the old way. You have to adopt this strategic, analytical, administrative mindset starting right today. You need to read, synthesize, and write with extreme precision. So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to really reflect on as you go back to your preparation. Look at how you spent your last hour of studying, and ask yourself, are your daily study habits building a rote learner who's just going to freeze up when the questions get tricky? Or are they building a future district leader who can actually analyze, evaluate, and decide? Remember, the choice is entirely in your methodology. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you that strategic edge you need to crush your upcoming exams.